One Zambia, One Nation. Good evening. Welcome to the news on ZNBC TV. My name is Chilufya Mwelwa, and on sign language tonight is Pastor Johannes Getana. Our top stories in the news this hour. President Edgar Lungu has called on newly appointed permanent secretaries to ensure prudent utilization of public resources. Government says it will use the SADC organ troika on politics, defense and security regarding the attacks of foreigners in South Africa. Energy Minister Matthew Nkoa says the country will next week start importing power from Eskom, South Africa. And coming up in sports news, football analyst Ruben Kamanga has urged the under-23 national football team technical bench to improve the back line, which looked porous during the Zambia-Congo-Brazzaville game. And now the news in detail. President Edgar Lungu has called on newly appointed permanent secretaries to ensure prudent utilization of public resources. President Lungu says the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee looks up to them to explain how public resources are being utilized. The head of state said this when he swore in 3 permanent secretaries during a swearing-in ceremony held at State House in Lusaka today. Sharon Kunda has the details.
Protect, defend the Constitution of Zambia.
He started his career as a clerk in the public service more than 30 years ago. Dennis Chisenda has developed his profession over a period of time to a level of becoming an economist. He has been sworn in by President Edgar Lungu as Permanent Secretary, Ministry of National Development Planning. This was during a swearing-in ceremony held at State House in Lusaka.
I'm very confident that with your wealth of experience in the public service, which spans over 30 years, you will be able to make valuable contributions to the implementation of the country's 7th National Development Plan. I have no doubt about that, and I thought much about that when I was appointing you.
Others sworn in include Chanda Kazia, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Labour.
I have no doubt that your expertise in labour matters will help in addressing labour issues which continue to confront us. And as a Labour Permanent Secretary, I know that you interface with the labour movement. You also want to interface with the employers and indeed the workers themselves, because that's why you are there.
Daniel Bukali is new Permanent Secretary, Provincial Administration, Western Province.
You are a very young person. For you, my message is that be the role model, which will encourage me to appoint more and more young men to positions of responsibility. The challenge I face is every time I appoint somebody young, people say, are you sure he's going to do the job? And if you fail, you discourage me from appointing more and more young persons to a position of responsibility.
The President has urged the newly appointed permanent secretaries to work according to expectations of the people.
You cannot be controlling officers if you don't have time to delegate and supervise those working under you. So I hope you take the term controlling officer very seriously and appear to be in control of the assets, monies, and indeed account for the same to the people of Zambia.
After the swearing-in ceremony, the permanent secretaries shared their plans with the media on what they intend to work on.
We need to work around the issues to do with sector-based minimum wage, to now start addressing each sector and then come to some understanding around that.
Sharon Kunda, ZNBC News, Lusaka.
And government says it will use the SADC organ troika on politics, defense and security regarding the attacks of foreigners in South Africa. Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampiongo says stakeholders are concerned because this is not the first time that foreigners are being targeted in that country. Hector Simfukwe reports.
Information Minister Dola Syria and Home Affairs counterpart Stephen Kampiongo have held a media briefing where a wide range of issues were discussed. Among the issues discussed is the attack of foreign nationals in South Africa.
We are saying let's remain law-abiding citizens. Civil activism against the xenophobia is permissible within the confines of the law. But certainly, we are not going to allow any more people getting on the streets, as it were yesterday, and going through properties and destabilizing, the normal way of doing business.
Meanwhile, the situation in Lusaka has returned to normal following the deployment of police officers in the city. Misria also used the opportunity to encourage Zambians to make submissions to the parliamentary committee, looking at the resolutions of the National Dialogue Forum.
And we want to encourage Zambians to go and make their submissions through the various stakeholder groupings. And I do know that on the 26th, I believe, is the day when those who have not been invited as ordinary citizens can go and make submissions. So it's yourself, media, personnel, and everybody else should be interested to let your voice be heard on these matters that were discussed by stakeholders at the NDF bill.
The minister also assured the country that government has continued distributing relief food to areas that were hit by drought in southern province and other parts of the country.
Issues of food are not political issues. They're just issues about people. And they understand that government is doing all it can. The President Lungu and the government who not want to see the people in southern province who've been hit by climate change calamity suffer. No. And the president expressed his happiness that these gentlemen, these members of parliament are saying, look, this is not about politics.
During the same briefing, Misria also said government is engaging stakeholders to explore ways of reducing the prices of mealie meal. Hector Simfukwe, ZNBC News, Lusaka.
And the Zambia Association of Truck Drivers has urged Zambians not to retaliate against South Africans in the advent of the xenophobic violence in South Africa. Penelope Sikazwe has the details.
It is an image that has made several rounds on the internet. A South African truck driver just saved from the wrath of a mob at Kazungula border post. According to police spokesperson Esther Katongo, the victim did not escape the punches. The incident happened on Wednesday, while another driver had most of the goods on his truck looted. Police have launched investigations into both cases, and the Zambia Truck Drivers Association has spoken against it.
We, as peaceful Zambians, we don't engage ourselves in those forays or shortcuts. That's why we tend to say, okay, we can have a dialogue so that whatever our grievances lined up has to be addressed.
Other truck drivers are calling on authorities to address the root cause of what is happening in South Africa.
I think what the Zambian government need to do, and many other governments should do, is just to make sure that they make the conditions of service for truck drivers and many other affected parties to be conducive, so that we don't have to go and look for jobs somewhere else.
Meanwhile, there is a reduction in economic activity at the border posts. But top of the Zambia Revenue Authority's concerns is the congestion being caused.
On the exit side, that's where we have seen a bit of traffic mounting up, in the sense that our colleagues are not exiting Zambia. They've decided to park in the border areas of this, and as you are aware, we do not collect any taxes on most of the exports, except for one or two, which is timber and precious stones.
Penelope Sikazwe, ZNBC News, Lusaka.
And on the same story, Msanzala Member of Parliament Peter Daka has called on members of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association CPA African region to take quick action on the South African xenophobic attacks on African migrants. Mr. Daka, who is also CPA's second vice president of the Zambian branch, observes that the attacks in South Africa are some of the issues that need to be quickly addressed by the association. He said this during the 50th Commonwealth Parliamentary Association CPA African Region Conference in Zanzibar, Tanzania.
I'm one of the pioneers that started Pan-African Parliament in Ethiopia. And we voted to move Pan-African Parliament to South Africa. We are talking about seamless platform, meaning that when we have seamless platform, we will know what is happening in Malawi, what is happening in Zambia, what is happening all over. We have emphasized on the migrants dying on the boat, but we are seeing migrants dying in South Africa. As members of CPA, which is controlled from the UK, what are we doing about it? We have never seen white people killing each other.
And speaking on the sidelines of the conference, first Vice President of the CPA Zambia branch, Evans Chibanda, said the significance of the conference was to celebrate the 50-year milestone of existence of the CPA African branch. Meanwhile, Southern Province Minister Edifai Hamukale has assured that South African-owned businesses in the province are safe. Speaking to journalists today at his Livingston office, Dr. Hamukale urged South African investors to open their businesses and operate normally. He said police have been deployed to guard all South African-owned businesses in the province.
I wish to assure all South African companies that are domiciled in Southern Province that their investment is safe. I've since alerted the security to make sure that we offer protection to property. So who is found behaving in a manner that endangers or breaches public peace and also a danger to property and to humans who will be heavily punished, will not take this lightly. So let's not fight things that we have only scanty information about because we heard it happened somewhere and then you want to do the same here. This is not acceptable.
And the Ministry of Higher Education has warned students not to force it to apply measures that will disrupt their academic calendars. Higher Education Minister Brian Mushimba has expressed displeasure at the actions by students from the University of Zambia, Unza, during their demonstration against xenophobic attacks on foreign nationals in South Africa. Dr. Mushimba says it is regrettable that the demonstration resulted in damage to public and private property. After inspecting some infrastructure and equipment at the Northern Technical College, Nortec, the minister said while government recognizes students' rights to air their grievances, they should desist from engaging in violent conduct.
To not tolerate such behavior from our students, we ask them to desist, we ask them to stay calm, because this issue that is happening in South Africa is already getting active attention from the officers that are tasked with handling such matters. When they involve themselves in activities like yesterday that tend to be violent and damage to some property, they just risk a lot of other unfortunate events happening to them, and we don't want that. So I am calling on university management, I'm calling on university student union leadership to make sure that they address the students and make them understand that the behavior of yesterday cannot be condoned. The behavior of yesterday needs to be stopped.
Meanwhile, Zambia's High Commission in Pretoria, South Africa, says no Zambian has died as a result of the current wave of violent attacks against foreigners in South Africa. And the mission has dispelled social media reports indicating that 39 Zambians have been killed in different parts of South Africa. Zambian High Commission First Secretary for Press and Public Relations, Naomi Nyawali, says it is regrettable that some of these social media reports have falsehoods. Mrs. Nyawali has advised the public to follow updates on the current situation in South Africa from official statements issued by the mission in Pretoria or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs headquarters in Lusaka to avoid being misled. She said only one incident involving Daniel Lupia was officially recorded, and the victim was discharged from Germiston Hospital on the same day after being treated for injuries he sustained. Meanwhile, Mrs. Nyawali, in a statement to ZNBC News, said the mission is actively pursuing reports that another Zambian truck driver identified as Siachinji Sialubaya was attacked in KwaZulu-Natal province. Now, Energy Minister Matthew Nkua says the country will next week start importing power from Eskom South Africa at a cost of $13.5 million United States dollars. Mr. Nkua says with the inclusion of transmission charges, the cost will go up to about $21 million US dollars. He was speaking in an interview with ZNBC News in Lusaka today. He said the importation of power from Eskom will cushion and reduce on load shedding hours from at least 8 to 6 hours.
If we include the wheeling charges are the charges for transmission of the power, then it will go to $20.5 million. And obviously our consumers are paying below the price that we will be buying it at. So we shall have import levy on the electricity charge. So meaning that whatever extra money we're going to pay, you will pass it on to the consumers. I think it's better that they have power than have no power at all, you know. And if you compare that to running a genset, still, you know, there's a lot of saving if you get power from ZESCO. So we'll do everything possible, and they can't give us the full power that we need because they also have shortages of power.
Now, in other news, University College London researcher Imad Ahmed has advised government to retain the waiver on import duty on backup generators for the manufacturing sector in its 2020 national budget. Mr. Ahmed said this is because about 95% of industries are using backup generators to mitigate the impact of power outages. He says manufacturing industry needs backup generators to continue with their operations and avoid job losses. Mr. Ahmed was speaking at a public discussion forum in Lusaka, organized by the International Growth Center, under the theme, Nurturing the Manufacturing Sector. And ERB research economist Cletus Sikwanda, who was one of the panelists, said there is need for awareness to firms on how they can assess low electricity tariffs like the mines through tariff setting process. Meanwhile, Zambia Development Agency Director Enterprise Development, Mukula Makasa, said there is need for the country to invest in alternative sources of energy, such as biogas.
The manufacturing sector has been shown historically to be very important in countries' development. Industrialization leads to job creation, and it leads to an evolution of the economy into the services sector. It doesn't necessarily have to be like this. Zambia can chart a new course that is different from this. It would be exceptional. It's not the historical.
Me as a consumer, I'm at the far end there, supply. But for the mines, they can pick up power at transmission. So they've got their own systems. They will reduce, they've got their own generators and stuff like that. But for me, all the costs involved here, from all the way from Kariba to pass all those until to my house in Suvaris, I have to make sure that I pay all the losses. Because we've got transmission losses, we've got distribution losses. I'll incur both transmission and distribution losses. But for the mines, they may not incur distribution losses, given that they are tapping in at transmission.
This year alone, mid-year, I mean up to June, we had recorded $2 billion worth of investment into power generation. But of course, the argument is, yes, we are attracting all this investment, particularly into hydro power production or generation. But then we have, climate change affecting us. There isn't enough water. So even if we invest in hydropower generation, there isn't water.
This is the ZNBC TV main news. We take our first break. When we come back, we have education news. Stay with us. Welcome back. We continue with the news. On our education segment tonight, Ngombe PTA Primary School in Lusaka receives computers. I'll be back with the details right after this message. Madison General Insurance Company Limited has donated computers to Ngombe PTA Primary School valued at 100,000 kwacha. Details in this report.
It is a good gesture coming from the corporate world. 14 computers have been donated here at Ngombe PTA Primary School in Lusaka's Ngombe compound. The gesture is courtesy of Madison Insurance Company, and the cost of the items is 100,000 kwacha.
14 computers worth about 100,000. Yeah. We've been associated with the school from way back 2002. See, this is a community school, PTA school supported by well-wishers. And for us, we have been on a good journey with the school.
To grace the event is Roma Ward 17 Councillor Chilandish Tangala.
From just well-wishers and also just the community that is being led by the PTA. So this is good for us because it shows that so many well-wishers are aligning the SDG number 4, which is quality education.
The school management is grateful for this gesture, but they have an appeal.
I'm happy that well-wishers are coming on board to help us. We are still crying. We need a borehole for us to start using those flushable toilets which are behind there.
Meanwhile, there is time for a vote of thanks by the pupils.
I would like to say thank you to the Madison Insurance for the donations I've made, because long time in the past we faced many challenges in terms of computers.
Martha Banda, ZNBC News, Lusaka.
That's it. That's our education news for tonight. Join us next week for more. Now, in other news, the Patriotic Front, the PF Lusaka Provincial Committee, has cancelled its protest to the residence of former Rhone Member of Parliament Chishimba Kambwili. PF Lusaka Province Secretary Kennedy Kamba says the decision was arrived at after police directed the PF to cancel the protest due to the tension in the city. Mr. Kamba told journalists in Lusaka today that the police advised the party to hold on until calm completely returns in the city because the environment is not conducive with the xenophobia protests that were staged by students yesterday. And PF Lusaka Province Chairperson Paul Monga advised opposition political parties to respect the instructions given by police during such times.
And we would like to inform the members of the party in Lusaka Province that this marching a solidarity march to the president and taking the petition to Kambwili's house is not going to take place tomorrow. We have just received the notice from the Zambia police not to go ahead with the petitioning and solidarity march to the president. The reason being that the city is not conducive because of the activity which are taking place in Lusaka. You know, there are issues to do with the xenophobia.
So there must be division of labor. I'm in charge of politics for the
Lusaka Province.
Lusaka Province. So my colleague who is in charge of security advises the political party. We should all adhere to his advice. And this should be the same with the other political party in the opposition to show that the police does not favor us because of the ruling party. So they give equal protection and equal rights. So this should be a lesson to all political parties that is we in Lusaka province and other provinces. Once the police says don't go ahead, because if anything happens to the people's children, I'll be held responsible.
Now, 30-year-old Irene Manda, not her real name, has implored people in risky behaviors to consider taking pre-exposure prophylaxis, PrEP, to prevent HIV infections. Irene, a sex worker, spoke to ZNBC's Ruth Kamwe in an interview for News In Depth program. Here's a report.
She has been a sex worker for 5 years now. Irene Manda, not her real name, is alive to the risks that come with a line of work.
Knowing that I have multiple partners, what came into my mind first was health.
But she's taken preventive measures and is now a champion for pre-exposure prophylaxis, PrEP.
Then when I came to know about PrEP, I joined. That was in September 2016. That's when I started taking PrEP up to date. I test negative most of the time I test.
Government, through the Ministry of Health, has been implementing PrEP since 2016. PrEP medication, which is the same as antiretroviral drugs, is given to people who test negative to HIV but are at substantial risk of being infected. Assistant Director for Infectious Diseases at the Ministry of Health, Tina Chisanga, says the target population includes serodisconnect couples, sex workers, women and adolescent girls.
We also encourage, as much as they are taking the pre-exposure prophylaxis, that they continue with the combination of other preventive measures.
And Deputy Project Director, Clinical Services at USAID Discover Health, Kalasa Mwanda, says they are implementing PrEP at least 182 community facilities in 9 provinces. He says the number of people on PrEP from across all the Discover Health facilities stands at 4,200.
I should mention that time and again our healthcare providers have had to provide services within brothels.
For Irene, who has been using PrEP alongside other preventive methods, going for regular health checkups, high adherence to PrEP, encouraging our partners to test and to use PrEP if they test negative to HIV, gives her hope that Zambia will control the epidemic by 2020. Ruth Kamwe, ZNBC News in Lusaka.
Health Minister Chitalu Chilufya has challenged health practitioners to reach out to communities and educate them on risk factors associated with non-communicable diseases, NCDs. And Dr. Chilufya has observed with concern the rate at which NCDs are increasing in the country. Lucky Piri reports.
A traditional performance meant to sensitize people on non-communicable diseases. It is a conference meant to deliberate on issues regarding non-communicable diseases in Africa. This is the 2019 East, Central and Southern Africa College of Physicians Annual General Meeting and 4th Scientific Conference in Livingstone.
We need to know the extent of the enemy that we are dealing with. We can only do that by generating evidence, and that evidence can only come from research.
Health Minister Chitalu Chilufya has officially opened the meeting.
In Zambia today, we are privileged to have a head of state in His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who has taken leadership in the fight against non-communicable diseases. Let us take off our coats and get into the community in various congregate settings and interact with our people.
And other stakeholders are also concerned with the increase of non-communicable diseases in Africa.
Countries working together to provide that training for general physicians, but also later on looking at subspecialist training is absolutely fantastic.
Meanwhile, Zambia College of Physicians is pleased with government's commitment in combating non-communicable diseases.
The organizing committee has put forward a program which will provide a platform for groundbreaking discussions among healthcare providers and relevant stakeholders on the need to take charge.
The conference is being held under the theme, Emerging Threats of Non-Communicable Diseases in Africa. Lucky Piri, ZNBC News in Livingstone.
We'll take our second break. We'll be back. Welcome back, and now for the rest of the news. ZNBC Director General Richard Mwanza says the production of a children's talent search musical program, I Can Sing, will be extended to rural areas. Mr. Mwanza says the move is to give an opportunity to more children to explore their potential in singing. The ZNBC Director General says the national broadcaster has the capacity to do productions but just needs resources from cooperating partners. Mr. Mwanza was speaking when he met 10 children who have made it to the last round of the competition to be held at Mulungushi International Conference Center on September 22nd, 2019. And ZNBC Director Programs, Rose Chumpuka, has thanked artists who have worked closely with the children to make the production possible. And Chief Judge for the Talent Show program, Maureen Lilanda, has urged schools to take up music as a subject. Meanwhile, ZNBC producer of the Talent Music Search program, Franklin Tembo Jr., said the participants have been exposed to professional musicians in the country.
And so the corporation has dedicated enough broadcast time both on radio and television to specifically inform, entertain, and educate children. The programs meant for children cover aspects of education, socio-economic, environmental, health, energy, and sport, among other important issues. So let me encourage children out there to continue watching and listening to ZNBC because you have so much to learn and grow into responsible adults.
But also that we greatly relish the content that you provide to us as ZNBC, and that we as a corporation do prioritize the genre of music, and especially that it has a blend to it. And why? Because it's sitting in a category which is rare, and that is that of children.
They've taught us to be more patient, to be more considerate. I really do thank ZNBC for this production. I know that in our schools, most of the music comes maybe as an extra lesson, unless you're in a private school. In our government schools, I think we don't even do it anymore. I would like to encourage schools to take in children at an early age and teach them music. If music could be a must subject, I would really be happy, because not everyone is talented academically.
Finally, Lusaka businessman Ronald Mwansa has been put to rest. Mr. Mwansa was put to rest today at Leopards Hill Memorial Park in Lusaka. Burial was preceded by a church service at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross. Hundreds of mourners, including some government officials, attended the church service before proceeding to Memorial Park for burial. Mr. Mwansa, aged 76, died in the early hours of Monday at the Cancer Diseases Hospital, where he was rushed to after falling ill. He was the proprietor of Fiat Taxis Passenger Transport Company, which operated the 007 buses and taxis. Mr. Mwansa will be remembered as former chairperson of the United Transport and Taxis Association, UTTA, and former chairperson of the Lusaka Squash Club. As we end the news, here's a reminder of the headlines. President Edgar Lungu has called on newly appointed permanent secretaries to ensure prudent utilization of public resources. Government says it will use the SADC organ Troika on politics, defense and security regarding the attacks of foreigners in South Africa. Energy Minister Matthew Nkua says the country will next week start importing power from Eskom, South Africa. And football analyst Ruben Kamanga has urged the under-23 national football team technical bench to improve the back line, which looked porous during the Zambia-Congo-Brazzaville game. That's it. That's where we end the news for now. We'll be back at 22 hours. Remember, Zambia is bigger than all of us. Bye-bye.